How's it going, guys and geeks? Welcome to Geekritique. My name is Dakota, everyone's third favorite fictional chronologist. I'm working my way up. I've got something really cool to share with you guys that I've been spending months on. Originally, this was supposed to come out around the time of Tales of the Empire, and then it was supposed to come out around the Acolyte, and it just kept growing and growing as a project until I am able to release it now. And I'm so happy because the reception that I've received online so far has been overwhelmingly positive. It is called the Star Wars timesaber. It is a new way to visualize the Star Wars timeline, and it includes almost everything within canon, save for short stories, short comics, and like certain children's books. If you like what you see here today, please be sure to like and subscribe. It really goes a long way. I wanted to share what I've been working on with you guys. I wanted to let you know that this is available as a Patreon exclusive if you want to download the full version, or if you want to download a free version, a smaller version that's still very much legible. You can also find a free version over on our Patreon as well, so that everyone gets the opportunity to check this out. I'm really excited about it, and I'm going to talk to you in this video. If you've been following my channel for a long time, you'll know that I like making timelines. I've made a Marvel Cinematic Universe timeline, a James Cameron Avatar timeline, a Frozen timeline, a Monsterverse timeline, a One Piece timeline, a D&D timeline. All of those happen to be singular lines. From left to right, this is what happens, chronologically. And with the Star Wars timeline, I've wanted to do that for a while, and I did try to do that with my timeline journals back years ago, and it just wasn't working out because there was just so much content to fit within the Star Wars timeline, and I just kind of put it off because I thought it was impossible. And then I kind of just started thinking about, like, how can I get into timeline content if I can't create a visual timeline to work with my videos, something that I can add onto as new content comes out. And I thought about how in the old expanded universe books, now legend books, they had a timeline, the Del Rey timeline of all the, at that point, canon novels that existed within the EU timeline. And I always thought that was cool. I think that was my first real exposure to visual timelines, was that. And with the new canon, they have plenty of books, but the Del Rey books only include the adult novels at this point. So this is a new book, The Living Force, and this is what they have so far. It's cool, but they don't have the shows, they don't have comics, they don't even have young adult novels or junior novels or anything like that. So finding something that was a visual guide that also encompassed all of that was just incredibly difficult to find on the internet, and it was always outdated, and I've always wondered how I could do it myself. So you'll notice with my Star Wars timesaber, it's not a left to right visual timeline. It does start from top left to bottom right, but it swerves in and out of the timeline, and each line kind of goes in a different direction as I weave a singular narrative throughout the timeline of the Star Wars universe. I got that idea from Star Wars Timelines. To this day, it is the best reference book I've ever read. I highly recommend it. I made a review on it. I love this book, but I got the idea from some of their graphics within this book, where it wasn't just a linear timeline, it was, a weaving graphic. And that's kind of where I came up with the idea of the timesaber, and I finally committed to being able to make something like that and trying to figure out how to do that in Photoshop. And dude, it took me forever. I think this image comprises over 12,000 layers within Photoshop. Before we get into the meat of the actual timeline, I want to talk about the composition as a whole. It didn't always start as a literal lightsaber that weaves through time and space. This started as just a bunch of lines, and I eventually connected those lines so that I could weave this timeline around, and then I decided, what if every line had a different color? From the bottom to the top here, it's kind of a chronological listing of all the lightsabers that we've gotten as we've gotten them. So we had originally Luke's blue lightsaber, then we had Vader's red lightsaber, then Luke's green lightsaber, then Mace Windu's purple lightsaber, and then, barring a couple, we have Rey's yellow lightsaber. I added Luke and Anakin's, iconic lightsaber to kind of give this visual a ending, I guess, or like a bookmark to the logo that I had at the start, the Star Wars timesaber logo. So anyway, this is the first unscripted video I've done in a very long time. It's probably very hectic, so I apologize, but let's actually get into, how I created all of this. I'm going to start by exploring, and showing you how the different timeline stuff is broken up. So we have movies and eras, they're in white. The television shows are kind of like an off yellow. That includes all television shows, including cartoons, live action, short episodes, long episodes, full seasons. All television is yellow. The adult novels are in blue. The young adult novels are in teal. The junior novels are in purple. Comic books, which there are a lot of, are green. Video games, which there are not a lot of, are orange. Audio dramas, which there are very little of, are in red. Manga, which is pretty much the only original manga that currently exists on the timeline right now, is in the High Republic era. Web novel, there's a singular web novel. Good luck finding it. And attractions, so rides at the Disney theme parks. And so that is basically how I do it. You'll see that the eras are nice and white, nice and large, very easy to differentiate like how these eras are broken up. So before 18 BBY, we have 19 BBY. That is, prior to the reign of the Empire, and the reign of the Empire starts in 18 BBY. And we have, a bunch of different eras, starting with Dawn of the Jedi up at the top. There are no canon stories right now that exist within the Dawn of the Jedi era or the Old Republic era. And I just want to emphasize again that I didn't include any short stories, any short comics or short story anthology stuff, as well as certain children's picture books, just because there was just not enough room on the timeline as a whole. So you have the High Republic, which is where we really start seeing a lot of storytelling. There's some really great comics, there's some really great novels in the High Republic era. I highly recommend, if you're reading chronologically, The Path of Deceit is the earliest young adult novel in the series. It is amazing. It's an amazing book. But there's a lot of great books in this run. Obviously, we have The Acolyte Season 1, occurring about 100 years prior to the prequels. And now you'll notice that I do jump certain years, that there's nothing between 130 BBY and 60 BBY. So there's no reason to put those on the timeline just yet. But I can easily add them and move stuff around, shuffle it around, so that I can add new titles as they come out, which I'm really excited about, because this is there's so much room left on the graphic, and I think that this is gonna just grow to be such a cool project. Alright, so let's talk about how I collected TV shows. We have the Clone Wars, which is notorious for the episodes not happening in chronological order most of the time, or some of the time. Starting with the first couple seasons, the episodes kind of happen all over the place. So when it's just a singular episode that starts it off, I just kept it as a singular episode. So Season 2, Episode 16 is the first Clone Wars episode. Season 1, Episode 16 is the second one chronologically. Then you go into the TV film, Season 3, Episode 1, Season 3, Episode 3, and then you go back to, Season 1, Episodes 1 through 8. So here we have a batch of episodes. I decided not to put every single episode on the timeline individually, just because it would be way too hectic. There's hundreds of, episodes of TV. I can't do that for everything. So I didn't do that, but I did batch these together when it was appropriate. So you'll notice that even though episode 9 comes after episode 8 directly, it's bridged by a new year. So I did separate that, and that's why I did that. Certain anthology series like Tales of the Jedi, Forces of Destiny, and Tales of the Empire that are anthology series. So they don't happen episode after episode after episode. They happen all over the timeline. So for those, I decided to write out their entire title, just so that you understood that this is a separate one-off story that's happening and not just a collection of stories. But yeah, intersected with those is comics and novels and young adult novels. So we have audio dramas like Dooku Jedi Lost. If you notice on the Dooku Jedi Lost, we have this symbol here, and I can go down to our legend on the bottom left, where we have the asterisk, which means estimated dates. We don't know for sure when those titles occur. We have this square symbol, which means that titles are either retconned or retold, kind of like Ahsoka here. You'll see that square appear on Ahsoka. and that just means that it was potentially retconned by this Tales of the Jedi Episode 6. You'll notice I put them side by side. There's a couple of those on here that I decided to just label potentially retconned or a retold story. Now, this symbol, this up symbol, is a frame story. And frame stories, I've had some questions about what that meant. So hypothetically, there's a story about, there's a collection of comic books that Jabba the Hutt is retelling stories of his past 600 years of life. In that collection of stories, there's a bunch of flashbacks that are the predominant focus of each individual story, but the flashbacks all occur in different time periods. Instead of putting each of those flashbacks where they occur on the timeline, I collect it into where the frame story is being told, or the present day event. So that's what that symbol means. So the Dooku Jedi Lost book, even though it starts many, many years earlier, where is it? It still occurs roughly around this period in 23 BBY. Yeah, that's basically how I did everything, and I'm really excited to share this with the world. I'm really excited to hear what you guys have to say about it. I wanted to, highlight certain areas of it. This area was really stressful for me because I wanted to make this look good, and I think it did end up looking good. I didn't want it to be too cluttered, but the second area that I was most worried about was the Age of Rebellion, which is the period that Marvel Comics has decided to use as their focal point for all of their comic runs. That's the Star Wars run, the Darth Vader run, the Bounty Hunters run, the Dr. Aphra run, and all of the comics within, basically. Most of the comics in Marvel's run have been in these 4 years. As you can see, it's very hectic. It was very hard to find room for everything. I might eventually spread this out a little bit, expand those years just to give it a little bit of breathing room and make it a little easier to read. But yeah, so that was a very difficult section, and it took me 2 weeks to get all these listed in the order that I wanted to. You'll even find stuff like Star Wars Uprising, which is no longer even a playable game. I don't even know why I put it on there, but technically it is part of the canon, and it is included in the Star Wars Timelines book, so I decided to do that. And another big section of the timeline is 34 ABY. ABY and BBY, if I haven't already explained that, is before the Battle of Yavin and after the Battle of Yavin. So the first Star Wars movie is all in the year, where are you? Oh. So the first Star Wars movie is in just 0. It's not a year, it's the 0 point of the timeline, the entire first movie. And then after that is 0 ABY, and before that is 1 BBY. That's just the way that Star Wars organizes that currently. So 34 ABY is, according to Star Wars Timelines, the busiest year in the entirety of the Star Wars canon. So have fun going through that. But this is also where we have, chronologically, where we place the Galactic Star Cruiser, which is now defunct, sadly, Millennium Falcon, Smuggler's Run, or not sadly, if you are really angry that it was so expensive and over the top, and Rise of the Resistance. Yeah, so that is the Star Wars timesaber. It is available to Patreons right now. You can go over to my Patreon. It's linked in the description. For those of you who don't want to download the huge picture, you can download the free version. You don't need to be a Patreon member, but you can find the link to our Patreon for this free version in the description right now. So this is available to everyone. It's a small version. It's a little less than a third of the resolution of the large picture, but it's perfect for mobile users. For those of you who are patrons, who are like paying Patreon members, even just $1 a month, everything helps. You have full access to everything on our Patreon. The large image is 25,000 by 10,000 pixels. It's a massive thing. It doesn't even work on most mobile phones. It crashes the app. And so yeah, it's big. It's meant for desktop, but if you want the full version of that, you can find that on our Patreon as well. This is also available to download on our Geekritique Timelines folder over on our Patreon. It's a Google Drive that has all of our notes for everything, including versions of the timeline that you can download. And I'm going to keep the entire version history on here so that you guys can see, as I add new stuff, how it changes over the years, over the months, whatever. Now, the Star Wars timesaber was a passion project, but it wasn't it wasn't even possible if it weren't for the resources that I used to compile all of this information. So I wanted to give a shout out to not only the Star Wars Timelines book, which I consider the best reference book that's ever been printed. You know, I really love this book. But I wanted to share my love for Utini, which has a fantastic Star Wars timeline. It's probably the best, you know, list by list, title by title timeline on the web. It's just, you can very easily filter it, you know, comic books, graphic novels, and let's say TV episodes. And you can go through everything on Utini with ease and find which titles work for you. They even have short stories and short comic books that don't appear on my timeline because there just wasn't enough room. So yeah, and you can go through all of this on utini.com. I'll link it in the description. They have different eras: Fall of the Jedi, Reign of the Empire, Age of Rebellion. I also cross-reference this with the timeline of canon media over on Wikipedia. They have a fantastic listing of every canon stuff ever, but I do still find the timeline on Utini to just be a little bit more curated by Trevor Davey. It's a really fantastic website. I highly recommend it. So I kind of bounced back and forth between those different timelines to create my Star Wars timesaber, and I included my notes so that, you know, it's not 100%, you know, based on Utini's timeline or Wikipedia's timeline or even Star Wars timelines. If there's certain titles that I'm like, it works better here, I decided to put it there. So it's a mix of everything, including my own notes on the Star Wars timeline that I've, you know, collected over the years. But I'm really proud of it. While you're here, there's a giveaway that I need to resolve. A couple months back on the Monsterverse timeline, I initiated the continuity giveaway that I never chose a winner for, so I'm going to do that now. Everyone who commented continuity on that video got an entry ticket, so here I am. There were 30 of you, so I'm going to spin this wheel. Let's see what we get. Ooh, it has a noise too. Looks like 19. All right, so 19. All right, looks like Ben Vaughn, you are lucky number 19. Wow, this is better than I expected. Continuity. Thank you, I appreciate that. And yeah, we'll be sure to send continuity out to you as soon as possible. And going back to the Star Wars timesaber, it was never intended to be a replacement for other, more in-depth timelines. This is just a visual timeline. I had never seen a full graphic of the entire Star Wars canon on a single image, and I wanted to create that for you, and I wanted to create that for myself. And I hope you really enjoy it. I hope you get to use it. I hope you downloaded it, whether it be the free version or the full version. Thank you to all my Patreon members for subscribing over the years. I have a lot of new content to come, and I can use this Star Wars timesaber in my Star Wars timeline content, which I plan to start very, very soon. Thank you guys so much. Please be sure to like this video and subscribe if you haven't already. It goes a very, very long way, and I can't wait to see you in the next video. Have a good one.